Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Waking Life, starring Wiley Wiggins and directed by Richard Linklater. Now, before I get into this, I remember going to theaters back in 2001, so I was like 12 when I saw this movie in theaters, because I wanted to, because of a Critics Show I watched when it was originally Siskel and Ebert, but it was Ebert and Roper, and now it's at the movies or something like that. That was on TV at one point. And I saw clips from the movie on TV, so it made me interested to see it the way it was animated. And what did I think of it back then? I remember really liking it. So we'll see if that still remains the case. And I've already done a Scanner Darkly before in the Philip K. Dick area. And one movie that he did after those two movies, I will talk about in a minute. Let's get into it. We open with a little girl who happens to be Richard Linklater's daughter, Lorelei Linklater, who I remember seeing her in Boyhood, which I've also reviewed before, playing with a boy whom I'm led to believe is the main character as a boy. And I remember this game where they pick a color and number and eventually picks a message that says "Dream is Destiny." And the boy happens to look up at the sky at nighttime as he floats up, and we get him all grown up and played by Wiley Wiggins from Dazed and Confused. As he arrives in Austin, Texas by train and makes a call, as well as gets a ride from a boat car and drives him to a corner where he'll get hit and dreams about it when he wakes up. And I love the animation style of this movie, as it works more here than in a Scanner Darkly, which I liked, and Apollo 10 and a half, which I saw part of but never got around to finishing it. I will for this retrospective. So, but in my opinion, this is the best it looks like this far, as in my opinion, as I've already reviewed A Scanner Darkly with the Philip K. Dick retrospective series like I brought up before, and I remember feeling positive towards it, as it's second best compared to here. Again, I didn't finish Apollo 10 and a half, but we'll get there. We'll get there. It's the very best, this movie is, and I also like how we follow one main character as we follow him around, unlike in Slacker, his first movie, where there was no main character in that thing whatsoever. Meanwhile, we get some violins, cellos, and pianos in a chorus class, and a woman named Sarah is trying to a tune she asked for her teacher, asked her teacher about, which was available terrific, which was absolutely terrific, which was a terrific scene, and the music was beautifully orchestrated, not just in that scene, but in this whole movie. The main character wakes up for the morning and has some cereal and milk, and he gets to philosophy class at school and chats with the teacher while having lunch, and he meets Kim Krizan, who I'm not too familiar with, and talks about the sound of the word love coming out of her mouth and hits the ear of the person she says it to, as he talks to the shape-shifting man, and the cinematography looks great. As director Richard Linklater shot this movie on digital video, which felt amazing in this amazing film. And I also like how sometimes people change colors and shifting shapes at times, as that was an interesting choice in my opinion. The main character lies in bed and sees his clock looking funny, and he starts to float and flies around town and talks with a man who will burn himself with gasoline after their conversation, which looked amazing. As we move on to a couple who I was led to believe is Jesse and Celine from Before Sunrise, played by Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, but this isn't a sequel to Before Sunrise, I'll say it best. That's a couple of movies away. But I do like seeing them return as their characters from Before Sunrise, despite this isn't really a sequel to that movie. We next get to an angry man that looks red in jail and cusses his ass off about what ended up happening to him that led him to prison, and thinks about how he'll kill every single one of them motherfuckers when he gets out of prison, which was a fascinating but disturbing scene in my opinion. We move on with the main character meeting with someone named David Sosa, and we see him floating water on his face and talks about the Big Bang Theory, not the TV show. That was way before that show ever existed. I just want to clarify that. And this movie did come out before, well, anyways. And I like how this movie makes me feel alive, and this is a beautiful movie to watch along with the animation. We get a man in a car with a PA who believes in Republican politics and talks about freedom with speakers that can hear him loud as day, as the main character meets with some people to talk about life, as this is a movie where it makes you feel good about being alive to this day and appreciate life. And I admire that about the movie, and it is beautiful to watch. We get a chimpanzee running a mini movie projector, and the movie is called Noise and Silence, as the ape talks while we see the actions going on the screen. And other than the Planet of the Apes, I can't think of any movie that can't struggle where they can't struggle at speaking English, and that felt fascinating. We see a woman chatting with a man writing a nonfiction novel about people, and we move on to a bar where a guy tells a story about a guy who witnesses a guy with his shirt off with the knife as he runs as fast as he can, going ha, as he thinks this is wrong, and he pulls out a gun to shoot the asshole. And why he carries a gun, and he wouldn't die until he shoots the bartender, and the bartender shoots his ass dead, as they both die. And his story was funny, but it did have to end the scene in a random violent way. Well, maybe it still works. The main character wakes up and calls his friend and watches the TV and gets to a channel with the commercials about seeing the world, and he goes and visits his friend, a couple of guys dreaming about, as he bumps into his friend whom he called about in his dreams, and they talk about it and having so much damn fun in everyone's dreams, and these scenes are absolutely fantastic. The main character floats up again and goes to the cinema to see The Holy Moment, as one guy chats with another guy about film and The Holy Moment, and played the staring game for The Holy Moment, and eventually turned into Clouds, which was amazing dialogue and an amazing scene, while it was amazingly written by director Richard Linklater. A few guys walk and eventually see an old man randomly hanging on the electric pole and asks him if he needs help, and he doesn't want. They call him a stupid bastard in the lowest voice and walk past him and bump into another old man they know sitting on the table, while the main character bumps into a man who's a dreamer and says dreaming has been forgotten and are banished in this world, as he brings up being alive, and he bumps into a guy whom I swear to God I didn't understand a damn thing he said, but that doesn't matter because I'm loving this movie at this point. And these scenes are fun, as this movie, in my opinion, is a lot of fun. The main character bumps into a woman who doesn't want to be an ant and brings up ants and their colony, and they meet and talk for a while, as he can't remember any information he has about himself. And I like the way the scene is shot, animated, as it looks fantastic. The main character visits someone in a bridge and brings up how this isn't a dream, and brings up the ongoing wow, and brings up how life is understanding, and walks with someone who said how he's never met himself yet as a real person, as he cannot be the person who he is when he's awake, as he bumps into a woman he saw in the train station in the beginning of the movie, and all of a sudden he wakes up and he is still dreaming while he sees his clock acting funny again, and same as his TV, and he sees a woman talking about dreams, and he goes to a convenience store and sees the man whom he thought drove him in a boat car in the beginning of the movie, as it's not really him, and chats with a lady about structure becoming a concept, as he goes to a place for some music from the same place people from the beginning of the movie, as this is connecting so well, as he sees a person playing pinball and talks with him about how he's trapped in his dreams and asks for help on how to wake up, and he just says, just wake up. And he awakens and goes outside and floats outside it. Well, first he goes to the house that he grew up in and floats outside the sky, as he could be dreaming even to this day, as this credits do roll, and the climax had me going, wow. This is one of Richard Linklater's best movies, with Boyhood being second best, as this might be his masterpiece. And I really like how we follow around one character, unlike his first film, Slacker, where they follow everyone in town, and to the point it was confusing, but this is a much better movie than that, in my opinion. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 9.3 out of 10. This is one of my favorite Richard Linklater movies, close with another movie from Richard Linklater made, Boyhood, being second best in my opinion, as I love the animation style in this more than A Scanner Darkly and what I've seen in Apollo 10 and a half, as it was gorgeous to look at from start to finish. And I like how we follow one character, unlike Slacker, where we follow a bunch of characters to the point it got confusing after a while. The music was beautifully orchestrated, as the cinematography looks great despite it's animated and shot on digital video, which felt amazing in this amazing film. And I like how sometimes people are different colors at times I'll say, and it was interesting. This movie is absolutely beautiful to watch, and it makes me feel glad to be alive, whereas so many movies I've reviewed after all these years are brain dead and very dumbed down. And this is a strong recommendation, as I love this movie ever since I first heard about it on where Roger Ebert and Richard Roeper reviewed it back in 2001, and when I saw it in theaters, and to this day, as it's director Richard Linklater's strongest films yet to date. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time we'll be back with School of Rock. And until then, just wake up.